3 years ago, the Super Mario Bros. Movie dropped in theaters and reignited my interest in the Mario franchise. Even though critics found it to be mediocre, audiences absolutely loved it. The film itself wasn't anything too deep, it was just a simple story with lots of great fan service and love poured into it. And it worked. It made over $1 billion at the box office, and as far as everyone was concerned, it was good. Nothing more, nothing less. Everyone's already given their take on the film, and with a sequel basically here, it's safe to say that no one is interested in looking back at this film. Not me though. I'd like to not only talk about how I really enjoyed the first Mario movie, but how upon multiple watches over the past 3 years, I've realized that this film is deeper than we may have initially thought. Okay, it's no hidden masterpiece, but when you really look, and I mean really look into the film and what it does right, it's a genuine gem. In a lot of ways, this video is going to act as a bit of a retrospective and review all at once, and I'm pretty excited to begin discussing the first Mario movie. But before we do that, let's briefly discuss the history behind the film's production, as it's important for context. Feel free to skip ahead if you get bored. So, back in 1993, they made a Mario movie. Yeah, we don't talk about that Mario movie. So then in 2016 and 17, Miyamoto and Chris Meledandri got to work and began discussing a movie. And by 2018, the film was officially announced. While it would go through development hell, we would learn about the cast in September 23, 2021.
Address me now!
Don't worry, the elephant will be addressed very soon. On October 6th and November 29th, 2022, we would get the first and second trailers to the film along with some fun interviews. On Mario Day, the final trailer would drop, and on April 5th, the film would officially release. The rest is history. In my opinion, an underrated part of the film is easily the cast. When characters in movies feel like real people, it's not the script doing that, it's the actors carrying the lines on their back. And as a result, animated films / shows such as Shrek, Dragon Ball, and others have such memorable casts that radiate with good chemistry. Now I bring this up because in my opinion, the Mario movie's cast should not have worked as well as it did. First of all, Chris Pratt was a surprisingly decent choice.
Koopas!
I think the reason why everyone was hating on him so much was because the trailer lines for him were genuinely atrocious, when in the actual film, his lines range from being okay at worst to being surprisingly good. Was he the best choice for Mario? Probably not, but I do like how he attempted to put on more of a Brooklyn accent, and while he's far from my favorite casting choice, Chris Pratt ended up becoming a fine pick for Mario now that we have had time to marinate on it. Then we got Charlie Day as Luigi, and oh man, Charlie Day was such a good choice for my boy Luigi. Depending on the scene, he could range from making Luigi sound timid, scared, and cautious, to playing into Luigi being able to be courageous extremely well. And when he's paired with Mario, their personalities bounce off each other in a way that is entertaining to watch. A big complaint about the film was that Mario and Luigi didn't have much screen time together, and you could see why when the actors make both characters interesting to interact with. Now we're gonna go into a lightning round, starting with Peach and Toad. Keegan-Michael Key did such a good Toad, no complaints here. Furiosa herself played our Peach and knocked it out of the park, no complaints here again. Kevin Richardson as the homie Kamek was another banger choice. While it's not what I'd imagined Kamek to sound like, his raspiness that he added to the character's voice fits perfectly. Again, no complaints here. By the way, the Koopa General was voiced by Robin from Teen Titans.
He is currently digging in me.
And finally, Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong was another banger. No complaints here. But I do gotta say that I'm not the biggest fan of Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. My biggest issue with this casting is it doesn't sound like Seth Rogen tried to make his Donkey Kong sound distinct from his other characters. Now, he's not a bad actor by any means, but I can't help but hear Bob and Manus whenever Donkey Kong talks. And finally, we have my favorite casting in this movie. Charles Martinet as the arcade guy. This is one of my favorite cameos in the whole movie. Him telling Mario that their commercial voices were perfect and hitting that iconic wahoo is such a funny moment in the movie, and I'm really glad that Charles was given a chance to shine. Oh, and he also gets to voice Mario's abusive dad. Yes, this scene definitely happened in the movie, don't question it at all. Don't worry, I'll talk more about Mario's dad in a bit. And finally, we have Jack Black as Bowser. This is easily the best celebrity casting in this movie. Jack Black makes Bowser such a fun villain. And since we're on the topic, I actually want to talk about on why Bowser is such a good villain. And don't worry, after this section ends, I'll actually recap the film's plot and explain how Mario's character arc is good. When writing this section of the video, I low-key realized something interesting about Bowser. He kind of reminds me of a Disney villain from the 90s. What I mean is, he's funny, he's intimidating, and he's even got a musical number. No, but in all seriousness, Bowser is such a fun villain. Some of my favorite scenes in this movie involve Bowser being a goofball. Jack Black does wonders with making Bowser feel like a sucker for Peach at times, and I love how Bowser steals a star because he intends on using it to act as a proposal offer to Peach. However, as funny as he could be sometimes, this film always lets you know that, hey, this guy's a psycho and will lose himself to a short temper if you make him angry enough. The film strikes this near perfect balance of goofy and genuinely menacing with Bowser's character, and for that reason, Bowser wasn't just a gear that made this film work. He was a gem that everyone else was written around. But by far my biggest reason for liking movie Bowser is how he changed my mind about the Koopa King. Now, what I mean is, when I was younger, I used to watch a lot of gameplay videos from Professor Gaming and channels like that, and I really liked Bowser. He was this really cool villain who had awesome boss battles and was such an ore farmer. But then Odyssey came out, and while I liked the gameplay, I hated the wedding plotline. To 7-year-old me, Bowser was the ultimate ore farmer. He couldn't possibly have a crush on Peach. No. And from there, the idea that Bowser having a crush equaled bad stuck with me for a long time. Now, I'm not exactly sure why Odyssey was the game that made me hate the idea when I knew about Sunshine and Paper Mario, but it did, and I ultimately robbed myself of a great game because of my hatred for the wedding plotline. But then the Mario movie came out, and it completely changed my mind about everything. I already expressed how much I like Bowser in the film, and looking back, I think it's so funny how much I wanted Bowser to be this cool, badass dude, when him having a crush on Peach was probably the greatest way to evolve Bowser beyond just the big bad. So yeah, overall, I really like Bowser in the first film. And now when people ask me who's my favorite Mario character, like this guy for example, guess what I say? Our film begins with the invasion of the Penguin Kingdom at the hands of the Koopa army. Here we are introduced to Kamek and the big guy himself. Despite a good fight, the Penguins are swiftly defeated and get their homeland burned to the ground by Bowser. As it turned out though, this invasion was for one item, the Superstar. With the star in hand and an ego extremely high, Bowser then shouted,
And now no one can stop me!
Overall, this was a great way to open up the movie. The jokes landed well, and it does a wonderful job of showing us what the brothers will have to deal with later. No complaints here. Anyways, Mario and Luigi are finally here, and they're doing alright. They've opened a plumbing business in Brooklyn, and even with the disapproval of others around them, like Spike and even their father, the brothers are trying their best. But behind closed doors, Mario feels like a joke. And this is where our analysis on Mario's character begins. Now, Mario's character growth in the film is subtle. From the first scene we meet him and Luigi, we learn a few things about the two. Mario is the confident one, while Luigi is the more timid of the two. That's obvious enough, but more interestingly, in their standoff with their former employer Spike, we learn that they left them to start their own plumbing company. Spike even belittles their dope commercial and laughs at Mario's ambitiousness, and it's that exact trait that makes Mario an interesting protagonist. His biggest setback is his own ambition. While the term ambition is good in nature, we see time and time again throughout the film how people around Mario react whenever he challenges a task that seems to be far bigger than he can handle. One such instance is when Mario, and Luigi by extension, get pressed at dinner by their own family. There's no worse feeling than being put down by your loved ones, and that's exactly what happens here. Mario's uncles laugh at the idea of the brothers becoming plumbers, and although their mom is supportive of their dreams, Papa Mario isn't. He believes that Mario is crazy for being too ambitious and straight up tells him that he's bringing Luigi down with him. Mario then leaves the dining room and later vents to Luigi about his own inner doubts. Even with all of his confidence, all of his ambition, and all of his good intentions, Mario can't help but feel small in the big world. And that's all I'll say for Mario's character for now. Let's get back to recapping the film. Seeing Brooklyn literally flooding on the news, Mario and Luigi go underground to fix it, but end up getting sucked into a warp pipe and separated swiftly after. Mario lands in the Mushroom Kingdom. Fascinated by the scenery around him, Mario reaches for a mushroom, and Mario meets Toad. And after a bit of chatting, we see the two march towards the castle within the horizon. Cutting back to Luigi. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, Luigi's out here fighting for his survival and ultimately falls victim to the Shy Guys. But back in the Mushroom Kingdom, Mario gets guided by Toad through town, slowly learning about the world around him. Eventually, they make it to the palace doors, but will get stopped by my goats Blue Thunder and the Big Yellow. Or Blue and Yellow Toad respectively. Unfortunately for the two of them though, they made the mistake of messing with Mario. Inside the castle, the Toads worry about the newfound power that Bowser has, but get reassured by Princess Peach. She plans to ally with the Kongs to beat Bowser, and while on her way out the doors, she sees Mario. Mario frantically tells Peach about his little brother and how he was lost in the Darklands. Peach then lets him know that his brother is probably in Bowser's hands by now. Mario then began to press Peach about saving his brother, and being impressed by his attitude, Peach takes our plumber to begin his training.
I got this. No problem.
Although the training doesn't exactly go well at first, by morning, Mario shows incredible potential, and in spite of him failing, Peach explains how she's still gonna take him with her. Meanwhile, Bowser hypes up his troops and tells them what his intentions are with the star. He plans to use it as a proposal offer to marry their princess! Yeah, I'm not gonna hold you, Bowser. They think the plan's stupid.
Well, what if she says no?
Bowser then states that if she says no, the Mushroom Kingdom will be destroyed. Spooky. Now as for Luigi, he's currently on his way towards Bowser as he's became a prisoner to those Shy Guys from earlier. During his flight though, he remembers a memory where Mario protected him. Honestly, it's a nice moment in the film. And also, it's a fun way for us to see baby Mario and baby Luigi in the first movie. Back in the Mushroom Kingdom, Mario and Peach prepare to head off, but get accompanied by Toad.
I fear nothing.
Anyways, during their journey, we see lots of landmarks from the Mushroom Kingdom, and I think now would be a great time to talk a little bit about the fan service. Everywhere you look in this movie, all sorts of locations, items, and more from the series history could be found. While some criticisms about the film involve those seemingly overwhelming amount of references, for me personally, this wasn't an issue, as unlike another video game movie I'm going to talk about later, the references didn't feel like a replacement for an actual good story. Maybe a controversial take here, but the film does have a good narrative. Not a deep narrative, but an enjoyable one. Now I know it's a simple motivation, but Mario going on this elaborate quest to save Luigi, it just shows that in spite of the limited screen time the duo have, it's so obvious that they care for each other. As for Luigi, we see in that earlier scene that he trusts that Mario will save him. After being reassured by Peach that they'll save his bro, he asks where she's from. Peach then tells Mario that she ended up in the Mushroom Kingdom as a baby and eventually became the ruler of the Toads. It's a nice heart-to-heart scene, what more can I say? And as for Luigi, well, he's officially met Bowser and is currently being interrogated by the jealous Koopa King about Mario. Unfortunately for Luigi, when Bowser asks him if princesses find his brother attractive,
They do if they have good taste!
Let's break your neck.
in the Jungle Kingdom, the gang arrive and get taken through the Kong village and eventually make it to Cranky Kong. However, he's not about to put his nation on the line just to help the Mushroom Kingdom, much to Mario's annoyance. Cranky Kong then agrees to help if Mario could defeat his son in the Great Ring of Kong! A few moments later, Mario's seen in an arena filled with blocks and red girders, and eventually meets Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong in this movie is a fun character, and I love how showboating and over the top he is, especially when later in the movie he and Mario develop a bit of a rivalry towards one another. And side note, but having Mario's first real opponent be Donkey Kong is perfect. It's a perfect way to call back to the very first Donkey Kong arcade, and it's a great way to bring in all sorts of Donkey Kong elements to the Mario movie. Even though Mario hasn't been in a Donkey Kong game for years, his roots are Donkey Kong. That's why this section of the movie works so well for me on a meta level. Despite being initially overpowered by Donkey Kong, Mario defeats him using the Super Bell. And yes, 3D World Glaze will be tolerated on this channel. During his recovery, Peach tells Mario about how amazing he was, and how in spite of the fact that he kept on being put down, he kept on getting back up. This takes Mario back, as he's never thought of this resilience as a good thing, to which Peach replies that it's a great thing. This moment isn't just a good moment to show how Mario has began to think differently, but it also shows how much of a positive effect Peach, and in a lot of ways the Mushroom Kingdom has had in making Mario truly feel good. Anyways though, the gang have plans to take a shortcut to the Mushroom Kingdom. The shortcut in question will require carts! Meanwhile, Bowser practices his proposal with Kamek. However, he gets informed about the secret passage that the Mario crew will attempt to use by the Koopa General. Back with the crew, Mario leads the way onto the secret route, and it's none other than Rainbow Road itself. Combined with that immaculate OST, this scene is such a memorable moment for me, especially considering how much I love Mario Kart. And as Peach and Mario drive along the road, they begin to flirt a little before getting interrupted by DK, who tries to slander Mario, but fortunately for him, Toad is a W wingman and backs his bro up. Not long after though, they get ambushed by the Koopa troops, and before long, an all-out battle on the road ensues. And then, he appears, the Koopa General. Completely towering over everyone, he charges straight for Mario, who then tells everyone to split up to try and lead the Koopa troop away. This entire sequence of the movie is some genuine gas. Between the unique camera angles we get throughout the sequence and whatnot, yeah, you guys get the idea. I like this movie. Let's move on. After nearly getting crushed to death by the maniacal Koopa General, Mario hops onto DK's cart and with a blast of a barrel, seemingly stops the General. But this Koopa is out for blood, and with one last shout, he becomes the blue shell and destroys part of the road. Mario and Donkey Kong plummet into the ocean, the other Kongs get captured, and the surviving Peach and Toad are forced to rush home. Fortunately, Mario and DK do survive, but they end up getting devoured by a massive eel, so they're at the game. Meanwhile, Luigi is still chud maxing and hoping that Mario will come rescue him, so obviously, he's not gonna do anything. So all by themselves, Peach and Toad tell everyone to evacuate before the arrival of Bowser. And when Bowser descends, he attempts to win Peach's heart, but gets told by the princess that she has no intent on marrying him. Kamek then begins to torture Toad, and in fear of her people being hurt, she agrees to marry the big guy. Now, for the longest time in the games, Peach was the damsel in distress, and even though throughout this entire movie she's been able to prove how much more to her there is, she does technically become the damsel in distress, but the difference here is she ends up letting herself in order to protect her Toads, and to me, that's what makes her not only a morally good character, but overall a genuinely good character. Back to Mario and Donkey Kong, they argue with one another, and even when they learn that they both want their father's respect, that doesn't stop DK from using this to pick on Mario. But anyways though, they escape the jaws of the eel by riding a rocket barrel and hurry to Bowser and Peach's wedding. Speaking of, at the ceremony, Bowser states that he intends to sacrifice all of his prisoners, including Luigi, Cranky Kong, that one crazy Luma, and all those innocent people all in Peach's honor. Peach reveals, however, that she's not truly gonna marry Bowser and pulls an ice flower out of her bouquet. She freezes both Bowser and the chain, lowering the prisoners before heading off into battle. Mario and DK then arrive and fight their way through Bowser's army in a cool sequence that gives us Fire DK, a 2D style shot, and my goat Tanuki Mario. During her brawl though, Peach accidentally blows up the Bomb King, which causes her to lose the ice flower. Then the chain unfreezes, which means that the prisoners are back to being lowered. And while Donkey Kong is able to raise everyone back up, Luigi seemingly loses grip on his melted cage and begins to plummet into the lava before being saved by Mario! The brothers are back together, and in their happiness, Mario tells Lou that as long as they're together, everything will be okay. As the Mario crew finally reunites, Bowser frees himself and launches a Bomberbill to destroy the Mushroom Kingdom. But Mario has other plans and leads the Bomberbill away with a chase sequence and directs it into the warp pipe that brought him here to begin with. This is a great plan and all, but the energy from the warp pipe slowly brings everyone into it, and a few moments later, Mario ends up in Brooklyn.
You almost dented my...
We see Peach, DK, and Toad get buried under the rubble and witness Luigi hide it in a trash bin, but more importantly, the superstar appears. Mario books it for the star, but instead gets stopped by a furious Bowser and ultimately gets launched into the pizzeria where he and his little brother started their journey. Bowser then ridicules Mario, calling him a worthless, weak, little nothing. Peach, however, doesn't let that slide, and together with Donkey Kong and Toad attempts to challenge Bowser as Mario stays in the same spot he climbed himself up to, as he just looks down, defeated. An ad begins to play, and from this ad, Mario hears the words "Save Brooklyn." Seeing himself in the reflection, Mario begins to think, and then he gets up, uttering a single "let's go." I know I've been hyping up Mario's character throughout this video, but there's a good reason as to why. A big complaint people say they had with the Mario movie was that it barely had any character development whatsoever. That is such a bad way to simplify this film. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and say that the Mario movie of all things has an extremely deep message. That's just stupid. But Mario's character works both on its simplicity and its subtlety. You don't need a big speech from Mario about being underestimated and never giving up to understand that Mario in this moment, even though he just got battered down, refuses to give up. And for me, Mario isn't a good protagonist because he's a deeply written masterpiece. He's a good protagonist because he's simple, well written, and relatable. I genuinely relate to this little dude for quite a number of reasons, but my biggest reason is his will to keep on going. As Bowser prepares to end Donkey Kong, the bruised Mario challenges him, much to the Koopa King's angerment, stating that the plumber doesn't know when to quit.
Yeah, I've been told that before.
Peach then helps Mario and kicks the star his way, but Bowser quickly charges a fire breath to stop Mario from reaching it, and as Mario nearly gets incinerated, Luigi uses a manhole cover to deflect the fire only momentarily. Now, I have my problems with how rushed Luigi's arc is, but I'd be lying if I ignored how touching it was to see Luigi finally stand up for Mario. Mario then puts his hand out, and after grabbing Luigi, they rush for the star. The brothers seemingly don't make it on time though, and all hope was lost until Mario and Luigi were now superstars, and together stomped on Bowser's army. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a huge grin on my face the first time I saw this scene, and combined with that infamous Superstar remix, this is easily my favorite scene from the Mario movie. They then use their invincibility to mollywop Bowser and straight up curb stomp him, and with Bowser defeated, Mario and Luigi were hailed as heroes by all of Brooklyn, including their parents, with Mario's dad even clamoring about how amazing he was, much to Mario's own happiness. And that's pretty much it. Sometime afterward, the brothers move into the Mushroom Kingdom as their new protectors. Okay, first of all, my biggest problem that I had with the film wasn't the pacing or the simple story. It was the fact that despite being called the Mario Brothers movie, one of the bros got completely sidelined and had a half-baked arc. Now, I know, common opinion alert, but it's the most complained part of the film for a reason. I really wish we had seen more of Luigi. He was such a fun character, and the making to a neat little arc was there for him, but because he didn't have much screen time, him being willing to be brave and stand up for Mario at the end, although a nice scene, felt very unearned. Then there's also the inclusion of pop songs, and to be honest, it's not as bad as some people make it out to seem. Like, guys, let's be brutally honest here. The inclusion of No Sleep Till Brooklyn didn't make this film go from an 8 to a 3 out of 10. However, I will say that Take On Me completely replacing Driving Me Bananas does sting a bit. The pacing was another thing that I kind of had an issue with. Now, I didn't necessarily think that the fast pacing of the film was too much of a problem, but it definitely did impact the screen time characters like Luigi and Toad were allowed to have. And although we're gonna end up getting Fire Mario in the next film, I really wish we had seen Mario using the Fire Flower in this movie, but that's already more of a nitpick. A valid criticism though is how simple the plot is. Although I think this is a good narrative, it's not a great one. Now, in the film's defense, if you came to a Mario movie of all things expecting a Spider-Verse level film, then obviously when all said and done, you'd probably find the film mediocre or disappointing. But you do gotta remember that this film prioritized being a fun and cinematic experience for the family about the Mario world, and I think that's what this film does so well. You have to remember that for the longest time, video game movies were seen as some hot trash. Although Detective Pikachu and Sonic definitely helped some people think differently, quite a bit was riding on the Mario movie to be a good film. And to me, the Mario movie was the video game movie that cemented the idea that video game movies could be good. Now, as for recent video game movies,
That is one big pile of
I actually want to compare the Mario movie to one of these recent films really fast. Now, the reason why I want to compare these two films is because out of all video game movies, these are the two that got defended the most from criticisms. The defense in question was claiming that these films were for the fans.
No, Optimus!
In all fairness, these films were most definitely for the fans, but in my opinion, there's a lesson to take away from here. The Mario movie had a solid narrative, it had characters that were fun to watch, and most of all, it didn't feel like the "oh my god, look at that thing" references took away from the story. I've made my opinions clear on this already. This is how you do fan service with video game movies. With FNAF 2, however, it suffered way more from feeling like fan service slop in my opinion. I mean, the literal ending to that feels like prime FNAF SM animation from 2016. That's how bad it is. Combined with having a pretty mediocre plot and lots of "oh my god, it's that thing from this game," the FNAF movie 2 felt like an example of how not to do cameos in video game movies. But what more could I say? The Mario movie had a fun cast of characters, a banger soundtrack, genuinely funny jokes, some stellar visuals, lots of great nods to the games, and even a story that was wonderful for what it was. So after going over everything, I could give this film my final rating of a 7 out of 10. The first animated Mario movie was no perfect film, but between you and me, this movie truly means something to me, flaws and all. And even with its issues, this film is such a solid celebration of the Mario franchise as a whole. But with all that said, this concludes my retrospective / review of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this was an absolute monster of a video to work on. And if anyone is still listening at this point, thank you for sticking around. And I mean it too. And if you thought this was a great watch, please consider subscribing. By the time the next installment to this little Mario franchise comes out, this video should be up. So here's to hoping that the Mario Galaxy movie ended up being an overall improvement. But with that said, stay safe, y'all. Bye bye. See you later. Luigi!